To get started on this project, I am going to be doing some papers on my jelly plate, but I really wanted to see what I have in my stash that I feel like might work for this project. I know I'm going to need greens and pinks and yellows and blacks and those types of colors. I did want to just jump in and pull anything that I thought might be interesting to use. The images I've taken of bumblebees, a lot of times they were on pink flowers and lots of just basic green to chartreuse lime colored leaves. So those are really the colors that I'm looking for. And I want to do this project a little differently. See, this has got a lot of those light greens. So we're going to hold on to that one for sure. A lot of times, just living in the mountains, I naturally gravitate to woodsy colors. I'm really wanting to try to create something more whimsical with this project. Anyway, I like both of these. These might be something I could use. You know, I don't know. I'm going to put it to the side anyway. That should be in the trash. And this little piece might come in handy. Really not seeing much in the way of these others. So I'm going to just put these to the side for this project. And let me just show you. This is one of the pictures I've taken. This is actually the only one that I've really printed out. But I have several that I will be working off of, just to give you an idea of what we are working toward for this project. I did pull some multi-surface paints. The one that I know I want to try to do is wings for this bumblebee. And I found this around some Baby Bell cheese. I thought that it looked interesting, like to create cut the way the bumblebee wings look as far as that goes. Let's just start with some black. I've got papers here. This is just medical papers, and you don't need a lot. I really don't even care if I go to the edges on this one. I'm going to lay this guy down right here. And I want to pick some of that paint up. So we are just going to place that right there and see if we can just pick this paint right up off here. All right, let's see. Go ahead and lift this. See what we're working with here. Interesting, right? I'm just going to lay that to the side for the moment. I am going to use this, the Delta, and I've never used this kind of paint on my jelly plate before. It is the ceramic coat, and I'm really hoping that, make sure all this is dry, a little damp. I'm really hoping that this does not cause me any problems on my jelly plate, but we're going to try it out and see what happens. I am looking to try to create a funky little wing for this bumblebee. I want him to have a really cute little wing. So we're going to see if we can make this come together. Add some of this pearl color over here. And then we'll add some over here, but I'm also going to mix this on this side with a little bit of this multi-surface yellow. Not much. I don't want much. I just want a very tiny bit. All right, so let's do this side first because I don't want this one to be as skewed. Here we go. Now let's do this side. Wow, that yellow is a lot brighter than what I expected. I'm going to use one of these. Grab this. So you can kind of see that shimmer on there. I may just use this one to place back over that. Let's do that. Lay this over here to dry. And let's do the same thing one more time. I really don't want much. I think I'm just going to use a paintbrush to get the amount that I want right there. If you are looking to see what paints and everything that I use for this project, be sure and just check the description, because I will not call out everything, I'm sure, but you will be able to find a lot of that in the description. So just check there. I think it is so much fun. The jelly plate to me is just fun. It is just fun. If you've never tried working with a jelly plate, I suggest you grab one and get in there and work with it, because it's just fun to see what you can come up with these things, with different textures, different colors. It's just really amazing sometimes the different things that you can come up with to use in other projects. So I'm going to lay this one to the side. All right, so now let's work with maybe some yellow. I don't know that I'm going to add much to this yellow. Actually, I don't think I'm going to add anything. All right, take 2 sheets just to work on getting this off here. Wow, that yellow really picked up a lot of that black, didn't it? Let's start adding in some greens and create a couple of more green sheets. Now I've pulled a few. I've actually pulled one that's a matte, just based on what colors that I had in my stash. So I've got Thicket, Classic Green, Lime Green, and Citrus Green. I think I'm going to put this one back because I'm really not going for anything too dark. I'm really just worrying about maybe getting my color palettes worked in and making sure I have enough of everything whenever I'm ready to start. I cut my sheets too small is one of my problems right now. Now you can see where these get these little wrinkles sometimes where I didn't place the paper exactly right. That does not bother me, because to me that just adds some fun texture to the whole project, and it'll be okay. Next steps as I work on my bumblebee creation, we are just going to work on the background of the canvas. And as you can see, I found this very colorful canvas, which was done by probably a niece or a granddaughter, just to have something to play with for 10 minutes. I am going to use this because the colors that were used on this are perfectly fine with me. So I'm going to use this as my starting base, but we're going to add some more color on to this. And again, working with those pinks and greens and yellows and oranges as we continue to think about this project and work through our process of making it come together. I am actually going to start with adding some more greens. I'm going to add a couple of different greens here just to get started, maybe getting those juices flowing. And again, this is just the background, just to add another layer of depth as we work our way through this process. Always turn your canvas to whatever angle you feel like works best for you. And I am not trying to necessarily paint on a flower per se, but I am trying to smooth out strokes a little bit here and where my flowers might be placed as we go through this process and have it not be so back and forth. And again, this is a process. I know that it looks pretty sad right now, but trust the process. That's all I can tell you is trust your process. My daughter and I talk about this. Sometimes things don't come along as quick as you would like, and you feel like you should be finished, but you're not. And that's because there's something else that needs to be done to get this completed. I absolutely love this color. What is this? Festive Fuchsia. I am just going to add a sentiment that is not even going to be seen. I really love it. Whenever I leave my house, I have an entrance and an exit that is beside a huge holly tree. And when that holly is blooming, you walk outside, you can hear the humming and the buzzing and feel the vibration of all the bees working this holly tree. It is absolutely amazing. They work a lot of my other flowers too, like lavender and sage, and certainly my rosemary and different things like that. But that holly bush, you would think it was alive if you walked outside and heard it. It is just amazing. So this saying, you may be familiar with it. I really like this saying. I may actually even go back and add it to the top once we're done. But it says, the hum of the bees is the voice of the garden. And that is by Elizabeth Lawrence. And then I'm just going to put a few buzzes. Our painting is nice and dry. And as I look at this, these are probably going to be like a little set of roses. This is going to be some type of flower. This is going to be whatever these things are. If you, if you know what these are, please let me know. I probably just need to Google lens it. Just as I'm thinking through my design, I'm just going to have several types of flowers. My personal feeling is that sometimes maybe we get too much in our own head when we are crafting or working on a piece of art or whatever. For this project, I know that I'm going to need some things to complete my flowers, right? These are very airy. These are going to be more dense. I know I'm going to need some stems and some leaves. And I know I'm going to need my background, which is primarily green. So there's certain elements that I know that I'm going to need. Instead of really planning out every element, what I am doing is I am taking my papers and I'm going ahead and tearing them into pieces without putting them on the board, without making a very specific plan, just tearing them into pieces. Now, I tore different size pieces, quite a few pieces that would resemble leaves or buds, a few pieces that could be stems, a few smaller random pieces in case I need something to fill in. Then I also kept some of my green aside in case I do end up needing a very specific shape that I need to get. That's what I've done with my green. I'm getting ready to do that same process with my pinks and purples. to plan out the flowers. So the roses, they could be anything from a larger round piece to small rounded off pieces to create these roses. I just feel like the last couple of times that I've done this kind of project that I planned it out, I tore all the sheets of paper, and then I flipped them over on a board and knew where every little piece was going down before I ever glued it down. This process, we are doing it a completely different way. So I've got some clean water to help me with this. And I have got my sheets of paper. Now, I already know that I might use a little white, but I'm not going to be using a lot of white. So the first thing I am going to do is I am going to remove these edges so that I can just have the pink portions. And all I'm doing is just adding a little water to help me get these ripped. Now, I won't throw all this paper away because some of it I can reuse on my jelly plate. Some of it I may use on this project. The rest of this will go into a bin to use for making paper or anytime I need a paper scrap or something like that. So I finished my first one, and I'm going to keep the rest of this intact just in case I need something more specific. Let's keep going. We have went through, torn out some of the papers, and I'm going to bring back out my greens. I think it's handy to have a set of tweezers because sometimes these papers can be a little difficult to pick up. And I have my Mod Podge, and we are just going to start laying down our background. And we're just going to start placing these. That's all we're going to do right now. We are just going to start adding another element to our image. And one thing about this is that you want to, I say this, it's your picture. You can do whatever you want to do. But you do not have to cover if you painted your background, you do not have to cover every single spot. So I am probably, or at least most of it, there will still be some paint coming through, but I just like the way it ends up looking. So that's how I'm doing mine. Now, one thing that you do want to do is you want to try to make sure that you have no air bubbles once your paper goes down. So a couple of ways that I think help with that is number one, don't use too large of pieces of paper. Keep your pieces smaller, and I think you'll have more success with not having that issue. But you do want to make sure that you give your pieces a good press, whether that's with your finger or a brayer or something of that nature. And once again, I am just going to be quiet and work through this process. All of my first layer has dried. I'm just working on planning what is next. Just fitting some pieces in, trying to figure out where some components are going to go. Some of these roses, you can see the stems through. So we're wanting to make sure that we take care of that. So let's just lay out a few things just to get our head around where we're going. Let's start there and think we've got a few things happening here. Again, not really having a plan, just going off of the inspiration of all these pictures I have been taking lately. Make sure that you let all your layers dry before starting the next. All right, so we are going to need to make some more leaves. For this guy, I'm just going to cover up my Mod Podge real quick while we work on that. And bring my water and a couple of these spare sheets of paper that we kept. These are longer and more brightly colored leaves. So let's just see if we can make a couple just to add on to this. I don't know, can you even see this coming together yet? I can see it. But the point is that you just have to trust the process of bringing it together. To keep that perspective in mind as we're working through some of this. Maybe the larger leaves at the bottom and the smaller leaves off this plant going toward the top. I need some spots for some little rosebuds. So I am just adding those in here real quick. So let's start adding in some pinks. Start by just adding a couple of leaves right here. I just started thinking about some pressed flowers that I was working with and wondering about actually adding those elements onto this project. I think it's an interesting thought. So we're just going to leave these to the side for a minute while we continue to think through that. This one's going to kind of go up that way. I need these little rosebuds. Like I've got the little rosebuds that need to be on there. You know, if we can make that look like a little rosebud of some sort. Is that what about with using one of these for the rosebud? Let's see what else I've got over here. I forgot that I had kind of started with some little rosebud shapes. How about that? I really like that. Clean that up a little bit. I think that's cute. Okay, so we're going to do that for this little rosebud area. And let's see, I've got another little rosebud right here. Let's see if we can find another one of those neat little ones to use. I don't know. We're just going to leave that one sitting there for a minute. All right. we're going to start this next section of flowers. And to do that, I really wanted to have a lot of little papers going on and ready to use because I'm trying to recreate something similar to this, something light and airy. Let's just see if we can make that happen. I am working my way around these flowers because I just want to give everything, I want to give these pieces of paper just a chance to dry. And it does not take this sealer that long to dry. So I will just be randomly going around to each of these little flowers to place these pieces. And so I am just going to speed this up. We will get through it rather quickly. I am starting to think about the next steps and what other elements besides paper that I may be doing on this project. I do still have my bees to add, but there will be probably some paint or some markers or something else that I'm going to use to enhance the leaves and maybe add more details to the flowers, different things. It could be something as simple as just adding some doodling. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like right now, but what I don't want to do, personally, what I don't want to do is I don't want to add something on here and just hate it. What I like to do, if I have something that is printable or copyable even a word, something that I can copy, then I like to make a copy and work off of that for what might happen next before I actually add it on to the permanent version. So what I have done, and you will see that my printer copy machine must be having some ink issues. That doesn't matter to me because the colors don't really matter as much as what I am going to add to it. So I made several copies. I made two of the main section of the roses and these other flowers that I've got going on over here. I am going to use these as my experimental place to work before I go in and add anything else major to this. I am going to practice on some scrap sheets. And the great thing about these, I can still use these for other things. I could add these to a card, or I could always recycle them and make additional paper out of them, or decoupage them to another project that I'm working on. So the other thing that I have grabbed for my next step of the process, I just grabbed some pens to work with. I'm not going to use ink. I'm not using any paints on these, but I did grab some pencils and some pens. I need to grab a black pen because I do like to have a black pen also. And I am just going to start playing with these a little bit. And I am not going to go through that process on video. Anyway, that's just a tip to move forward when you are nervous about adding something to what is going to be the permanent copy or the permanent piece that you're working on. All right, so let me go to work on those and then we will move on to next steps. As I'm thinking about the final touches, of course I have to add my bumblebees. So I cut, let me show you if I can find a picture I still have. So out of the pictures that I took for inspiration, I have now taken those pictures apart and started cutting out these bumblebee shapes. And if you know anything about me, I cannot draw a lick, not a lick. It's not something that I even want to learn to do at this point. So I find shortcuts. Basically, I have grabbed my bumblebees that I've cut out, and some of the Gelli plate papers that I have made to give me a starting point to create these bumblebees. And all I'm doing here is we are just taking these bumblebees and I am just making some copies. Some I'm cutting down a little smaller, and some will be the actual size of what I trace out. I'm tracing on the back of my Gelli plate paper. It is too hard to see if I try to do it on the front with a pencil anyway. You could do it with a marker and then cut it out using the front of the paper. I'm going to do 2 or 3 of these, and then all I'm going to do is just fussy cut around them. And I am making more. I'm going to cut out more than what I need. And the reason that I'm doing that is just so I have some options as I'm going through this process. You could also do this instead of cutting your bee out. You could do this with tracing paper. So if you happen to have tracing paper at home, you could use that. You could also just glue the bee down to your image and just work off of the bee. And let's talk about wings. All right, for these wings, I am going to create my own tracing paper. And I'm going to do that by just tracing out each of these wings with my pencil. Now we are going to take this and turn it upside down. And I'm just going to put him right here. And we are going to add those wings onto this paper so that I can just cut those out. That works. Will that work? Well, it may not be perfect, but I think it worked out pretty well, at least for that one side. All right, well, we are going to try it again because we're really bearing down a little harder this time. So I can see where that cut line is, hopefully. A little bit better. Oh, that's better. Looky there. I can see that a lot better this time. I love it. I think that they're really cool. The wings. I love the way that that paper came out to create these, actually. So here are some of my wings. I love them. Don't you think that they are turning out so good? I love that. And let's keep making wings. I'm just going to keep finishing this up, and then we will continue working through the process. Yep. Just love the process. Don't you? Do you love the process? I love the process. So this is not a really fast project. So if you're looking for something for instant gratification, this is probably not it. If you're looking for something that's easy and enjoyable and that you can really spend some time focusing on, these types of projects are really great. So let's just make sure we have him glued down really well. There we go. So that is just the thing. This is very much a process that you have to commit to once you get started. If that's your kind of thing and you've never done this before, you might think about trying it. Do whatever inspires you. Nature inspires me. I love getting pictures of birds and bees and flowers and all of these great things. I am finding just a few little places that aren't glued down as I'm going through here, or the edges aren't completely glued down. And whenever I find those, I am just going ahead and adding a little glue to those to make sure that everything is glued down well. All right, so that is where our little bumblebees are going to go. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 5 little bumblebees. I have extras if I decide to add any more. We are just going to add a little more color to our bumblebees using some paint. And I have so many references over here. I'll show you. Obviously, I have the bees where I took the pictures, but I grabbed my Birds in Bloom magazines and went through and just found some more pictures of bumblebees just for reference. My bumblebee doesn't have to look exactly like my picture, but just to have something. Actually, I really like this one for this guy. So let's just think about doing that. So we've got some lighter yellow. We also have almost an orangey yellow. So let's add some orange to our tray also. Not much. We shouldn't need much. I am just going to use this as a reference to add a little bit. Start with this paler yellow and just see how that goes. You know, always turn your canvas however it makes it more comfortable for you to paint. So as we're doing this, we are trying to also just make the bee look more like he's part of the flower instead of just that piece of paper that I glued on, especially since these are the inspiration for this piece. We really want to take our time with whatever the main source of inspiration was. And for me, that was the buzzing of the bees in the garden. I'm just doing short little brush strokes, trying to simulate their little furry bodies. But you could do doodles, you could do all kinds of things to bring out this little guy. All right. I do need to work on his head just a little bit. Let's just doing that a little bit at a time again because I am not a painter. And for those of you that want to put some nasty comments, please feel free to. I don't really care. I do this for me, but I also do it to inspire others to get outside their comfort zone and whatever they're used to and just create something, get lost in whatever you're doing. That's what's really important here. So let's see if we can go in and remove his wings for a minute. Excuse me, we gotta get rid of your wings, dude. There we go. And let's just see about making a few improvements on this fella. Just continue to layer that up until we're happy. Whenever I'm laying down these different little streaks, I'm actually just going different ways because when you look at these little bees, it's hard to tell which way the fur is actually going all the time. So some are going forwards, some are going backwards, some are going toward their heads, some are going toward the back. So I am just adding in with my darker yellow, I'm going in and adding tick marks and going back and hitting it with a little lighter tick marks near the edges where it would be a little more fine. It's getting so fuzzy. Let's just move on to the other guy. Let's move on and create a little more interest around this fella. These little guys are further away, so you wouldn't be able to see quite as much detail on them anyway. They're set back in the background, adding just a little bit to them. But the bigger bees that are in the front, we are just taking a little more time with those guys. Now I'm going to continue. I'm going to add another coat to these just because I think layering is going to add interest to these. And it doesn't matter if you cover everything because the paper was already that color. You can see where that's. Now I'm just rambling. You just need to do it until you're happy with it. And if you're not happy with it yet, that just means that it's not finished. If you get tired of maybe you're working on something and you're just not getting the look that you want, take a break, walk away. It could be a few minutes, it could be a few days. You know what? I think I'm pretty happy except for his head. I do not like the way his head is coming out. I just think it looks a little too jagged maybe. I don't know. Just not liking it. Let's just work on that for just a minute. Maybe we can. It's just too harsh. Maybe. Is that better? I think that's better. Now we are going to get in there and we're going to glue on our wings. Let's just decide where our wings are going to go on these little fellas. Paint some antenna, add in a few little elements just to add a little finishing touch kind of to our bee. Little legs going up back here to hang on to the back of that leaf. Let's just do our orange because that's what the center of these are going to look like. And let's just add a little green just in the very center where the whole flower kind of comes together. Just to add again, we're just working on just adding a little depth as much as anything. I'm using all the same colors. So all the colors that I've chosen, I only have a handful. One, two, three, four, 5, 6 for the main palette. And then, of course, I have the blacks and the yellows for the bees. But it's a very simple color palette. Not a lot of different colors of the paint. There we go. Just going to go in with some of this green. I'm going to attach some of my leaves. Roses tend to have a rougher edge leaf, so we're going to maybe just add in little spikes along the edge of this leaf. Make it appear like it is a rose leaf. Just keep a rag handy, and if you make a mistake, you can just wipe it away. A lot of people like to use baby wipes for that purpose. I usually just keep a damp cloth with me if I'm working with acrylics because usually I know pretty quick if I want something removed, and I'll just go in and blend it in or wipe it away or whatever the case may be. As we come down around, we want to bring that leaf, that little jagged edge of that leaf around a little bit. For these roses, I'm not putting in a lot of detail. I'm just trying to blend that it's there. There's lots of veins right in a rose leaf. We'll just show that those veins are there, just barely. One of the things that I decided to do as I was working through this is to add the quote in as part of the picture. I don't have the best handwriting. This is very nerve-wracking, but we're going to go for it and hope that all of this comes together. Let's see. Let me start on here just to get, okay, here we go. We're just kind of simulating the wind as far as the extra elements go. We are just going to start outlining our roses. And at the beginning, I talked about how I wanted to make this more of a whimsical piece, and this is part of that process. I think outlining in a unexpected color just helps to add to that. So I am just going to continue to work on adding these elements, and then I don't know, we're going to see what we're going to do after that. So I am just going to be quiet, and we will certainly speed all of this up so that you don't have to be bored watching this as I go through it. Just a few final doodles to bring everything together. I don't know that this paper collage is my favorite piece, but it was an important one. Either way, an exploration that did push me out of my comfort zone and into brighter colors and bolder choices than I usually reach for. I do love the quote that inspired it all. The hum of the bees is the voice of the garden. What is something creative you've done lately that stretched you a bit? Or maybe didn't turn out as you expected? I'd love to hear in the comments. And if you enjoyed this process, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more experiments in practicing crafts. Thanks for sticking around. Get out there, get creative, get out of your comfort zone, and just have fun and enjoy the process. Until next time.